Everyone, it's Hunter here at Weather on the Go on this Wednesday, August 6, 2025. Welcome back, and we're going to be talking about significant severe weather that it will be developing across the United States with damaging winds, large hail, and tornadoes, even some flooding rains at times across the United States over the next few days. We're going to be looking at your fire weather outlook and your tropical weather update and also your long-range forecast later on in the video. So if you find my videos detailed, informative, life-saving, and reliable, make sure to subscribe to my channel and like the video, and also share it with a friend, family member, and on social media. I definitely appreciate it. Let's look at the severe weather forecast for today on Wednesday, August 6th. And we have the dark green area that is a 1 out of 5 marginal risk for severe weather, and that is the lowest tier of severe weather that we have on the risk scale. It goes from 0 to 5. It's a 1 out of 5. So that means isolated severe thunderstorms will be possible from South Dakota into Nebraska, stretching over into Iowa and northern portions of Missouri. The main threats will be wind gusts up to 60 miles per hour from South Dakota into Nebraska, Iowa, and northern Missouri. And then looking at the threat for some quarter-size hailstones, they're mainly in South Dakota and northern Nebraska where the instability is stronger today. And looking at the tornado threat, it is low. It's actually very low, less than 2% in all areas across the United States here this afternoon. Now going into tomorrow on Thursday, August 7th, we have a yellow area that is a 2 out of 5 slight risk on the risk scale, which means it's a higher risk than today. So scattered severe thunderstorms will be possible from eastern Montana into North Dakota and even parts of South Dakota as we go into tomorrow afternoon. In the dark green surrounding that, that's a 1 out of 5 marginal risk. That's where isolated severe thunderstorms will be possible on Thursday. Again, looking at 60 to 70 mile per hour caliber winds, especially from eastern Montana into North Dakota. We're also looking at a destructive hail risk. You see it outlined in black there, mainly in western and central North Dakota and a small area there of Montana and South Dakota. That's where hailstones could be up to baseball size as we go into the day there on Thursday. And there's a slightly higher tornado risk tomorrow in green in North Dakota. That is a 2% chance of tornadoes, and that's within a 25-mile radius of any given point in or around that area. Now let's talk about this, and this is your reflectivity. And you can see the precipitation here across portions of Iowa and northern Missouri. In the white, that is your cloud cover. In the blue, that is your sunshine, and there's a lot of sun to prevail across the southern plains, stretching over toward the Tennessee Valley and a lot of the northern plains too this afternoon. This is the decaying line of storms that we saw bring severe weather to the Dakotas and Nebraska and northwestern Iowa late last night and early this morning. That will continue to decay as it moves further to the east. A couple thunderstorms may result from that in west central Illinois, but some debris cloud cover is probably going to be the extent of that. We're going to turn our attention back here to the west, and that's where we could have a couple of those supercells developing across the Dakotas, down into Nebraska and into Iowa, and they could pose a risk for 60 mile per hour wind gusts, quarter-size hail, and a very low tornado risk as we go through the rest of today into the evening. And then starting off at 7 a.m. on Thursday, we're going to see some storms popping up in and around central Iowa. So the Des Moines metropolitan area down there towards the Iowa-Missouri border. And as we go through the day, that will continue to move off to the east with some isolated storm activity across the Mississippi Valley. Up here into North Dakota, that's where some severe thunderstorms will pop up early to mid-afternoon tomorrow. Those could be severe, and they could be packing quite a punch across North Dakota. You can see the reflectivity with the deeper reds and purples there. That is indicating some hail cores where we could see some destructive hailstones up to baseball size, some 70 mile per hour caliber winds, and a small tornado risk here along the leading edge. A brief tornado spin up cannot be ruled out. And this looks to turn into a bow echo. It's that backward C shape where the wind pushes the rainfall forward. That could produce some wind damage out there, bringing down tree branches, uprooting trees, knocking out power out lines, and obviously that could lead to power outages as we go through Thursday evening up there. That is the area in North Dakota into northwest Minnesota where the main storm activity will be over the next 48 hours. This takes you through 7 a.m. on Friday morning, August 8th. Couple inches of rain up here. Definitely watching for an isolated flooding risk. Couple inches of rain possible there into central Iowa if that storm complex does develop early tomorrow morning. Mainly looking at a heavy rainfall and a small hail risk with that. Not looking much at a wind or a tornado threat, thankfully. Looking at the eastern U.S., lots of sunshine, sunsplash skies there from the southern Great Lakes into the Ohio Valley, enjoying that for this afternoon. In contrast, we're seeing some showers and storms across the Carolinas into Virginia as we go through the day, and there could be some pop-up storms with the daytime heating. These are your pulse type thunderstorms. They develop for a couple hours with the peak daytime heating in the afternoon, and as the sun sets, the instability decreases, and then we start to see those storms really decrease in coverage and their intensity, and that's exactly what we see as we go into this evening. And then going into the day tomorrow, 7 a.m., things are pretty quiet, even in the southeast, couple showers, but then we're going to start to get active again across the Carolinas as that low pressure right off the coast will be spinning in some moisture, and some thunderstorms could result from that as we go into Thursday. Heaviest rains are ticketed for southern portions of Virginia into the central and eastern Carolinas, where areas near Wilmington down toward North Myrtle Beach could be seeing upwards to 6 more inches of rainfall, and that could cause some isolated to scattered flash flooding. Although the Ohio Valley Northeast is not going to be exempt from the thunderstorm risk, there will be many dry hours, and a lot of us will stay dry, although some of us could see some rainfall as we go through Thursday. In the western U.S. we got some shower activity up mainly into Washington State, northwestern Oregon, and around Seattle there over into portions of the Portland area in Oregon. As we go into the afternoon, we're going to see some showers and storms pushing from Washington State across northern Idaho and into western Montana. Lots of sunshine, though, prevailing across the desert southwest, heating it up down there, but we are going to see some monsoonal flow, so some isolated renegade showers and storms popping up late this afternoon into the evening, and then that could happen yet again as we go into Thursday across portions of Arizona, New Mexico, on up there into southern Colorado. Otherwise, the main storm track will be further north into southern Canada, British Columbia, Alberta, and Saskatchewan, or Washington State, northern Idaho, and Montana, seeing that going through Friday morning. Heaviest rains, again, are expected from Washington State into northern Idaho, Montana, otherwise southwestern and southern Canadian prairies, where we could see some spots getting a half inch to an inch of rain through 7 a.m. on Friday, August the 8th. Now, let's turn into Friday. Look at all of the storm energy that really begins to build, and you can see these purples and whites beginning to build. That is extreme instability for storms to develop in. That's 4,000 or 5,000 joules per kilogram of storm energy, and there is going to be some rotation in the environment as we go into Friday afternoon and evening out ahead of our storm system, and that could lead to potentially a few tornadoes, especially up there into Minnesota as we go into early Friday evening. And we take a look here at the latest Storm Prediction Center outlook. This is their day 3 outlook for Friday, August the 8th. There is an upgrade here. There is an orange area from Grand Forks down there to Aberdeen, where we could see some numerous severe thunderstorms developing. Obviously, you got the yellow and dark green, where scattered to even isolated severe weather outside of that will be possible, and significant thunderstorms will result from the Grand Forks area down to Aberdeen and just west to Sioux Falls, where we could be seeing some destructive hail, baseball size again, 60, 70, even 80 mile per hour wind gusts, and a few tornadoes. So something to keep a very close eye on in the forecast as we go forward into Friday, that is for sure. Let's walk you through it here. As we go to Friday morning, there could be an ongoing storm cluster up there into the North Dakota vicinity, and as we move into the mid-morning hours, that will wash out and weaken as it pushes into northwestern Minnesota. That will lead to an outflow boundary, and an outflow boundary is kind of like a front. It acts as a lifting mechanism to get storms to develop as we go into the afternoon, and that could result in more destructive storms in that enhanced risk area, where we could see numerous severe thunderstorms with severe thunderstorm warnings and tornado warnings on them, especially early Friday evening, and they could pack a punch. 60 to 80 mile per hour winds, baseball size hail, and a few tornadoes could result. So make sure to have multiple warnings or multiple ways to receive watches and warnings up here, including a NOAA weather radio program to your specific county or city that if you go to sleep, you have that at your disposal for Friday evening. We're not done. As we go into Saturday here, we got the low pressure occluding up into portions of Saskatchewan and Manitoba, and that will pull a slow-moving cold front through the Midwest, where we're going to have cooler, rain-cooled air underneath it, and then out ahead of it, some warm, moist, and unstable air, and that will lead to an environment ripe for severe weather and even some flooding risk, even as we go into Monday, early next week. So looking here between Today and Sunday night on August 10th, there's two distinct areas of rain. Obviously, the tropical influence across the southeast that we talked about, and then up here across the upper Midwest and the southern Canadian prairies. You know, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, Western Ontario, widespread rainfall amounts of 2 to 5 inches, and then sporadic rains of 1 to 3 inches across the upper Midwest, northern plains, including portions of the Missouri River up there in the Dakotas going through the weekend. Now, let's look at this ridge of high pressure, 600 decameters there into New Mexico and West Texas this afternoon. It will flatten out a little bit as we go into the upcoming weekend, and that's due to that occluding low pressure up into southern Canada. But even so, we're seeing record highs in widespread fashion across portions of the desert Southwest, including Phoenix up to 115, 108 in Vegas, and 114 there into San Diego this afternoon. So make sure, if you venture outdoors, if your job takes you outdoors, make sure you have multiple water bottles to stay hydrated, Gatorade, stuff like that. And also, the best thing to do is to find shade or an air-conditioned place to take breaks in, because that is some extreme heat that builds even further north and east as we go into the day on Thursday. But look at that rain-cooled air in the eastern seaboard, northeast I-95 corridor, down there into the Carolinas, seeing 70s and 80s. And then Friday, here comes the cold front, and that will bring an end to the heat after with some potentially record highs across the southern plains, central plains, even up toward the Great Lakes as we go towards this weekend. Now, even though the daytime highs are going to be warming up, that means the overnight lows will be warming up in tandem. So as we go into tomorrow morning, look at that record warm low in Phoenix, 91 as we go into Thursday morning. Same deal, but maybe 90 as we go into Friday morning. And look at our 70s here up into the upper Midwest like Minnesota, Iowa, Wisconsin, and Michigan, even northern Illinois, could see some record warm lows as we start the weekend on Saturday morning into the mid-70s. And then as that cold front comes through, that could bring our lows down by the time we get to early next week into the 60s again. Now, speaking of next week, between Monday, August 11th and Friday, August 15th, which is right up to the midway point of August, our warmth will continue as our slow-moving cold front will either wash out or it'll continue to kind of stall out across the Midwest, keeping areas in the Ohio Valley to the southern plains, even the Northeast, well above average with our temperature anomalies, and our precipitation anomalies are above normal for all of the southern Canadian prairies, which quite honestly need the rainfall. And then over here in the Midwest, where it's been drier the last several days, they need the rainfall in some spots there as well. Looking at the European model for next week, between Monday, August 11th and Friday, August 15th, it's a little bit more sporadic here, kind of sharing the wealth, if you will, for the rainfall, with some areas getting half an inch, other areas getting an inch and a half. It's kind of evenly spread, whereas the GFS model is a little bit more focused on the Midwest, the Ohio Valley, and Southwest Great Lakes with storm complexes that could drop a couple more inches of rain than what the European model is showing. So we'll keep an eye on that. Let's turn over here to the tropical weather update and first talk about the Pacific Basin. We have Tropical Storm Henriette. That is just to the east of the Hawaiian Islands. That will take a run toward the Hawaiian Islands here as we go towards this upcoming weekend. Another system you see that has a very high probability off of the Mexico coast, just to the south there, and that could be developing into another system, Evo, as we go in towards this weekend. So let's focus on tropical storm Henriette. This is maximum sustained winds at 50 miles per hour. Movement is west at 15 miles per hour. It will arrive just to the north of the Big Island of Hawaii by early Sunday morning at 2 a.m., still as a tropical storm. So let's look at this here into the Pacific Basin. This system will be arriving again just to the north of the Big Island by Saturday and then eventually Sunday morning. This could bring some swells to the coastline, especially the northern part of the islands here of Hawaii, and this could bring some rip current risk, potentially even rough surf. You can see we have a little bit of that today, but especially once that system gets closer, and if it strengthens a little bit ahead of schedule, maybe even into a low-grade hurricane potentially, if it can, that would bring bigger swells to the northern islands there on the shorelines with some rip current and rough surf risks as we go into the weekend, even into early next week before that departs. So we'll keep an eye on that. But just in general, the next system down the line would be called Evo, and that would be moving here into the East Pacific, and that one would be riding right along the coast there of western Mexico in pretty much a brief system. Once it passes just to the south and west of the Baja of California, that is likely to wash out as we go into the upcoming weekend. Let's talk about the Atlantic. The Atlantic is equally as busy as well. We're still talking Tropical Storm Dexter. We can put that in the rearview mirror. That is moving away from North America and into the open waters with the fish there in North Atlantic. We are still keeping an eye on a system, a 40% chance that could develop off the Carolina coast that is also turning away from North America. Our next point is up here into the main development region, just west of Africa. That is a long cone of orange, and that is a 50% chance of development, a flip of a coin at this point. Let's look at the background state of the atmosphere here in the Atlantic, and notice you got Tropical Storm Dexter. That's that low pressure up there in the Northwest Atlantic right now, heading into the North Atlantic and away from North America. We got a high pressure in the eastern United States, and that's going to keep the eastern U.S. actually safe and void from any tropical systems developing through the weekend. Lowering of the pressure here as a robust tropical wave moves off the monsoon of the Saharan Desert in Africa into the main development region, and that could lead to potentially a robust storm as we go towards the middle of August. Now, the system that's closer to the southeast coast here as we go through the weekend could still lead to some heavier rainfall for Florida, coastal Georgia, and the eastern and coastal Carolinas there. Potentially a couple more inches of rain and some localized flash flooding there with some saturated soils. Now we have to look at the dust, right? It's still dry, even as these monsoonal flow off of Africa, the Saharan Desert, moves across portions of the Atlantic Ocean. That is still going to be impeded by the dry air and the very strong push of dust there across the Atlantic, which could actually struggle some of these systems to develop as we go through even the middle of August. We have that Bermuda high. It's very weak up here in the North Atlantic Ocean, and lowering of the pressure underneath. We got to watch this as we go, especially into next week. There's that first system likely curving out to sea. That's the one that we showed you that has a 50% chance development with that big orange cone right now on the National Hurricane Center's tropical outlook. Then there's another stronger push just to the west of Africa by the time we get to next Sunday, August 10th. Right now, that's 114 hours out, and you can see the ensemble guidance is actually liking this, pushing it closer towards the Lesser Antilles by the time we get to Thursday the 14th and Friday the 15th there of August. But again, that's 200 plus hours out. We look here at the GFS ensemble guidance. It doesn't like the idea and doesn't really entertain the idea of that 50% chance development there into the open water of the Atlantic with that recurvature there. But that second system, there is some noise as we get towards the middle of August, and again, it pushes it closer toward the Caribbean. So that is something we are going to be keeping an eye on as we get towards that second and even third week of August, that is for sure. Let's talk about your fire weather outlook before we go today. There is a lot of dry air, dry fuels across the western United States. Relative humidity percentages are 5 to 10% here this afternoon. That does continue into Thursday and even Friday as well. So open burning, controlled burns are prohibited across this region, and just due to the fact that it's very windy, gusty winds, even in lower elevations, over 40 miles per hour. If a fire gets out of hand, it could get out of hand very quickly and turn into a dangerous wildfire. And we look at the fire weather outlook for today, this afternoon and evening for Wednesday, August 6th. In brown across the Four Corners region there, that is the dry thunderstorm risk where lightning could actually spark new fires. In the red, that's a critical fire weather concern, and in the orange is an elevated fire weather concern. We go to Thursday, very similar areas, and Friday as well. So several more days through the week here. Right through the weekend, there's going to be some critical fire weather concerns, whether that is from dry lightning or potentially even some controlled burns that get out of hand out there with the gusty winds. So make sure you're being responsible out across the West. Thank you all for watching. If you find my videos informative, detailed, life-saving, and reliable, we cover southern Canada, the United States, and the tropics. Make sure to like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Make sure to comment any questions and comments, concerns that you have down below this video. I definitely appreciate it. I am working on a Facebook page for my Weather on the Go, so you guys could have rapid fire updates. That should be unveiled as we go into the upcoming weekend, so be looking out for that in the comment section down below the video as well. So thank you all for watching. Thank you all for your support, and have a wonderful and safe rest of your Wednesday out there.